Hey, you asked for it, you got it. It's our quarterly Q&A, all question and answer show. Get in the corner office. We're going to get you some information. Time to roll Pensado's Place.
Hey everybody, welcome back. Here with my wingman, hadn't said that in a minute, Herb Trawick, T-R-A-W-I-C-K-H-E-R-B, my good friend and confidant. Today we're going to pick Herb's brain a little bit. I tell you, I'm blessed to be sitting to one of the most intelligent...
That's going to be a short show.
I'm blessed to be sitting... You're stepping on my joke, Herb.
Oh, sorry, man.
I'm sitting next to my left is one of the most intelligent people I know.
Drew Adams.
Drew Adams.
Well played, sir. It's true. It's true.
There you go. There you go. In fact, Drew is actually thinks his camera's up there.
I'm gonna figure it out one day.
Guys, in all seriousness, I'm blessed to have been friends with Herb for so long, and God gave me my talent, but Herb gave me my opportunity, and I want to share some of his expertise with you because one of the themes I want to go over today a little bit is we're in a changing, morphing music industry. I can teach you how to make some great records. I can teach you how to engineer. I can teach you about the creative process. But if you don't understand the environment in which to use all this stuff in, it's going to be a little hard to get that next HD3 system set up because you're not going to be earning enough money. So there is a balance between the information we're giving you and how to use it. And we told you early on in the early shows that we were going to try and give you a broad spectrum of how to find different sources for your music via movies, via this and that and the other, different sources for your talent like post-production engineering, mixing for film, mixing for records. And the internet, of course, is really given us a lot of great opportunities. And then we've got the DMP, Dave's Magic Preamp. We've got a winner, Herb.
We got a winner. We're going to tell them later on in the show. It's going to be cool. We're going to show them how they did it, what company did it, promojam.com. So stay tuned. It's going to be very cool.
Yeah, we went through great lengths to make sure this was fair. We'll go over that with you later.
Can we do a little bit of homework?
Let's do it.
So our normal drill is make sure you reach out to us in all the various ways. You see the page popping up there. So obviously our Twitter handle, Facebook, YouTube channel. And trust me, we are engaged with your comments. All of us, I think, now speak back to you during the week as much as we can. So it's always informative. It's very helpful. So make sure you reach out to us. In our corner office, and by the way, the kind of expounding we're going to do on the business, which Dave and I do often, it's important for you to do. That's going to be a part of the show, and then we're going to get to a really good and intensive corner office so we can get your questions answered. Last week we had such a great week with Michael Brower. Just what a superstar level guy, both in his skill, but also the way he shared with us and the audience. He's doing something cool in France, correct? What's he doing?
Well, Michael, like several of our friends, Joe Barisi has a workshop that he does. Excellent, by the way. Mm-hmm. Bruce Swedeen, I spoke with his people, and Bruce has one that's really good. These are incredible ways to get hands-on information, you know. And mm-hmm. Michael does one with some guys in France. You got a graphic ready, Will?
There it is.
Yeah, this is Michael's. It's mixed with the masters. The website and everything is available to you. And I'm going to do this too.
No joke.
Yeah, Michael invited me, and I can't say the French gentleman's name, but but I'm going to do one. And Michael has explained to me at length what he does with this, and I'm telling you, it's incredible. You get to sit with him for a week in the south of France. I think it's a bargain. I think it's really good. Or you can spend a week in Orlando with or Ocala with Bruce, or you can spend an afternoon with Joe over in Pacoima. Well, it's your choice.
Well, there's another thing too.
Joe's going to kill me. Why did I say that, Herb?
There will be another opportunity to spend
Joe's
time.
got a beautiful studio, by the way.
Yes, he does. Joe has a beautiful studio. But they're going to have an opportunity to spend time with somebody else that I know, but we just can't talk about that yet. We'll announce that stuff later. You don't even know. stuff me
You're
and Will been
reopening
working
the
on.
Bunny Ranch in Nevada? Is
Yep.
that what you're saying?
Yep, it's called, well, I can't say it, but the first word is Pensado, and the second thing, we'll get to it later.
Okay.
But again, we've got our giveaway coming up, which is really cool. Stay tuned for that. I see the chat room was full of stuff, so Drew in the corner office is going to make sure we're firing things a day so we can get some questions answered. And
Should we put a little parameters on today's questions? Normally we just take shotgun. Should we narrow the questions today to a...
yeah, I mean, I think you were talking earlier about having some philosophical stuff so you could expound on a few shotgun things and stuff we're keeping around, but stuff that we've already asked or stuff that we've done in ITLs, that stuff is available for you to go back and look at. So we want to try to make sure that you're being challenging in your questions and so on and so forth. So Dave,
I would like to know, we've done, is this episode 19?
Yes.
I would like to know which hair color and which hair length you've enjoyed most over the 19 episodes.
Really important
Pretty
because there's been 7 or 8 different color variations.
So this is important to my wife and I, and if you can just let us know, then I'll try and standardize that. That was a request Drew made.
There we go.
Drew's very conscious of my
Let's
coif.
Let's get it going.
All right. So guys, this is what I want to do. I can jump right in, right?
Absolutely.
Newsflash, the music industry is in the toilet. Music is not. Music is more popular than ever. More people now want to hear good music. They want to buy good music. But our industry is somehow having a little problem getting it to them. Now, let me preface that. I know most of the people in the industry, and to a person, the guys in the music industry, the executives, have an incredible passion for music. Most of them are underpaid, overworked, and they do this as a labor of love. And I'm being serious. I'm not kissing any ass here. I can name names. It's an industry that attracts very, very passionate people. But but things have changed. The climate has changed, and some of these passionate people don't have total control over their part of the industry. And a little computer company called Apple has come in and taken our distribution model away from us. And so we're going to pick Herb's brain because Herb keeps me solid. Sometimes he just depresses the hell out of me with this news. And then recently I've been incredibly uplifted by it. I was talking to my friend Damon Elliott today, and we were discussing this as Ann and I discussed it. I think it would be valuable for you guys to understand that the passion, the soil that all of this is grown in, I'm mixing about 10 metaphors, is still there. What made you get excited if you're 60, what made you get excited about the music that was from your childhood was that people just went out and made records. They didn't worry about selling it. There was nowhere to sell Zeppelin. Zeppelin wasn't on the radio and had a #1 record. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but for a point. But that's where we're at now. There's people out there making great records, and the traditional method of getting access to that music doesn't exist. So I want Herb to expound on that because he can do that so much better than I. There's some groups out there like Adele, Mumford & Sons, the entire Odd Future crowd, Novocaine by Frank Ocean is one of my favorite songs. In fact, one of the cats you saw in here, one of my assistants, worked on that, Andrew. Yonkers by Tyler, the Creator. That's one of our favorites, isn't it, Drew?
Mm-hmm. It's good stuff.
So there's stuff out there, and these guys, they didn't look for a way to sell their music first and then go create it. They created it and let the music sell itself. Now music's more about quality. Herb, jump in here. Like the old model was, you find a producer who writes a hit song, you put that song on your big ass artist, and then the song sells product. Now it's about singing, not necessarily singing, but it's about entertaining. It's bringing something. Help me articulate this to the guys out here.
Well, first let me say this. I have an opinion. There's lots of opinions out there. What you just tried to describe from my perspective is exactly the problem and the solution. It used to be we could approach the model in one very connected chain of events, and they were predictive. If you made a record, it was produced by such and such, and it got this much promotion, and it was the sales program at the store was X, and it would be positioned that way, and publicity did, and you would get some results that would translate to touring and da 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 da. We're in the middle of, newsflash, we're in the middle of a revolution, and by nature, revolutions are disruptive. So now, all the pieces are separate, and you can't tie it together. You know, what you just described, I would maybe describe differently. In the old days, the artist might have written their own song, and they may have been on an independent, and they may have sold it out of their record, and then it got picked up because a radio station started playing it in one city, and then that translated to, there were a number of different ways. So we're in this environment now where before...
I'm listening. I'm going to take some notes because I'll forget these questions.
Okay, so before, the companies sort of controlled how it got to the consumer. The consumer waited for that information. Where do I buy it? What's the album cover going to look like? Where's the single going to be? The only place I could hear is at the radio station. I had to hear it a number of times. There was the mouse, and technology gave the consumer the power. And the consumer has now diced that up into, I'm going to be selective about my money and my choices. If you waste my time, if you don't give me quality, I'm clicking and I'm gone. So now people are trying to figure out, how do I fill all these different silos? So the live business is not necessarily connected to the record business. The promotion business is not necessarily connected to how much records are going to sell. Artist development and companies taking all this risk to build these artists and get to certain profiles sometimes get returned, sometimes they don't. In a little bit of a way, and I don't want to be too windy about it, it reminds me of our political system. So the real estate we all share is America. And we got all these parties fighting over a bunch of shit instead of being able to say, you have a point of view, I have a different point of view, but we better come together on something and figure out how to win it. The industry is going through changes. And by the way, to your point earlier, there's a lot of smart people in the business. There's been billions of dollars spent on figuring it out. Yes, they were resistant in the beginning. Yes, music has taken on the chin. And the other side of it, too, is tech companies have taken advantage of the music. Some people think it's a wonderful thing. There's another point of view. Some tech companies have come in and just pimped the music business. And so, you know what, I'm going to grab the music from you. I don't really give a shit about the music, but I'm going to sell hardware. But I'm going to do it in a cool way, and you think it's cool. So you're going to keep buying my stuff because I'm making you think it's cool, but I'm getting rich as shit, and my stock price is going up, and I don't really care that much about the music. They're not necessarily building artists. They're not necessarily supporting the thing. Your copyrights aren't necessarily increasing in value, but their hardware is selling.
What as engineers and as a lot of producers and artists watch the show, do we have to sit idly by? How can we direct this?
No, the beauty of what's happening is that when you flatten something, you create other opportunities in other places. So before, it used to be this channel where we'd all try to become you, essentially. Or, you know, all the guys who've graced us on the show. And at some point in time, you wanted to get to one of the major cities and get in a major studio and then start to be able to mix from big artists. We get emails and stuff from people all the time who have created their own mix business where they live. And the pricing models are different because by nature of flattening, prices get flattened. But I just got one of the guys who interviewed you on a blog, he said, and he actually asked for advice. He said, look, I'm in, I think it was Philadelphia. He said, I'm making about $4,000 or $5,000 a month, but I'm doing $200, $300, $400 mixes. But I'm thinking about coming to LA. I don't know anybody here, but I just want to do that. And I said, weigh that very carefully because you're absolutely building something. You're in proximity to New York. You have a chance to get good because what I don't believe in is that you follow your craft off the cliff and then don't make a living and then you end up as a garbage man.
You follow what he's saying. That makes sense to you, doesn't it, Drew?
For the most part, yeah. My bad, I'm kind of back and forth with the chat room. But
okay, go ahead, do what you're doing.
No,
so Herb, radio no longer can dictate to us what we're going to buy, want, and listen to. MTV is dead. So let's say I'm a producer out there and I've got a song, or if I've got an idea, that idea needs to be predicated on. In the old days, it needed to be predicated on kind of like you had to pay attention to the latest things that were on the radio. Your sound had to sound a certain way. And record companies looked for certain things that mirrored closely what was already in existence. Nowadays, it's more about, if you're a young kid out there, or even an old kid like us, you need to create something that just undeniably provides entertainment value and gives people just 3.5 minutes of escape from life, and then trust the world to find it. You can get it to the world, and not by getting a real flashy name and throwing it up on my Facebook page. John, the greatest producer that ever lived, Jones. That's not going to really help you. It's about the product, not the hype anymore. So a lot of you guys out there that are thinking about becoming Billy Hard Drive Williams, it's probably not going to work for you anymore. Right. The hype is gone. It's all about content. It's all about. Do you agree with me here? But Adele is kind of like a perfect example, because nobody cared about Adele when we were talking about her earlier in the early shows, and then Rolling in the Deep. I mentioned that way before anybody heard about it, because it had an honest, emotional connection for me, and she's an incredible singer, but she didn't build her success on hits. The concept of building your success on hits is kind of gone, isn't it? It's about how do you describe what Adele does, or what Odd Future does, or Mumford & Sons?
Well, your definition has changed, because all the things you're describing have hits. They don't have hits in the traditional record sense. They're hits with the public, not necessarily hits on Billboard. But in some cases, and because we should be fair, Columbia's done a great job with this Adele record, because that Adele record is in a major system, and they sort of learned that they didn't need to interrupt the organic side of it and let that build and let that word of mouth build, and all of a sudden it comes together. That's one model, and that's the only point I'm making, is that there's now several models, and there's some models that, look, if you take the NBA, which we talk about a lot. The reason Miami, love them or hate them, we'll reserve that conversation later, is banking on those big three people, is because they've spent a lot of money, there's a lot of risk, they need to put bodies in seats and try to win, because there's a thin line between those companies making money or not. So you can't necessarily tear down the institutions that still bet on the big horses. They have a different model.
So the metaphor there is if you've got Stevie Nicks at your company, you're
or Beyonce or somebody, you may approach that differently. The beauty of Mumford & Sons and other folks is that comes up organically. They charge differently for their shows. They do different things. You asked several questions. Let me answer one big one for our audience, which is the default position is innovate. You want to innovate.
I like that.
So whether you're mixing, or you're making music, or you're thinking about distribution, or you're doing whatever, try to think outside the box. The marketplace rewards you thinking out of the box eventually. It's tough. It's slower. And the biggest problem people have in making the transition from the old model to the new model is the newer model's much slower. The results will last longer if you get there,
Good point.
but it's much slower. So if you're not innovating, you're replicating. Now, there's...
I think you went. Am
I getting all Jesse Jackson?
good.
I'm getting Jesse
good.
Jackson on it. So, but to that point, some people make a great living.
I think you went Johnny Cochran, man. I think that was a whole level above Jesse.
That's even a deeper level. But nonetheless, now I'm off into
Johnny
racial
Cochran.
metaphors. Nonetheless, there are some people who use replication to manage the model. So I'm not going to be the guy that sits here and knocks you for using Dr. Luke or some of our other friends who still do really incredible work inside a certain model.
And that's yeah.
And so the challenge is...
That was a good sentence.
Yeah.
That's where you're more articulate with things today. So the opportunity...
Once again, I call them medical excuses.
So what you have now is that opportunity often looks like challenge, or challenge often is opportunity. And so when guys are not in the major system, they're trying to figure out, what do I do to try to get myself to the next stage? First, you innovate. Secondly, get up to bat. Get up to bat as much as you can. Whatever up to bat is in your world, you will not be fine sitting back and waiting for somebody to find you, a hit to happen. You can't. Look, our show is an example of that. I mean, we won't bore them with all the details, but we had a different idea a year ago. on a chance. We came down to see a friend, had a discussion, turned into this because we just kept swinging at things. So it's a little weird because it's like the Wild Wild West. The old rules don't apply.
I love the opportunity. Drew, like on the Odd Future guys, I mean, how many times a day are they posting on Tumblr?
I mean, that's what separates them. They're almost like the new popular model. Like it's not like it's being forced out. They literally just said, we're going to do our own shit and put it out and constantly do it, and it started snowballing. And it's like that seems to be the model because the playing field is like leveled now.
That's what
via the internet. Yeah,
well, and I think what our audience should be aware of is, and this happened in the old model and the new model, to me, it's just again my opinion, there are a lot of people putting their shit out. There's only a few that rise to the top. The internet is so wide and it flattens so much. Look, again, just my opinion, I think MySpace got flattened because so much music. Interface was bad, it was all about music, there was a lot of music that wasn't good. So yes, you can put your music out. Tyler and those guys are good, and they're doing something interesting, and they are committed and passionate at working at it. So
passionate and committed.
So my point is that this is a lot of work. So while it's flattened, people think I should come out and results will come back. No, you got to put a game plan together. You got to go to work. You got to be consistent about it. You have to change your expectations in terms of results. And then when you start to break through, which we're experiencing, then there's things that you have to do strategically to break through. So before you used to have a company that would do that for you. You could be the artist. Now you're the company. So when you marry your girlfriend, you need to meet her parents. When you work for a company that's owned by another company, you need to know about that company. If you don't learn a little bit about the business that you're in, you're just going to be sitting around with your plugins and your laptop and stuff, thinking that you're getting better and not having any measurable result to measure that.
Round of applause for Herb Trout.
Thank you.
Herb, I'd say we obviously we can't cover everything, but I really appreciate the depth of your explanation. And you're gonna have to rewind this several times and check what Herb said, and then
or just forget everything I said.
and then maybe in the future, maybe episode 50 or something like that, maybe we can have a little panel.
Be great.
And discuss some of this further. But in the meantime, guys, I want you to think about what Herb is saying because it's our future. I promise you. I'm kind of known as having a little bit of vision about the industry, and it's clear as the nose on my face that this change is real, it's happening, it's coming, it's here, and we can. It's a good thing. Don't be scared. It's not that you're never going to get to make records for the Rolling Stones anymore. But what it is you're going to get to make records the way you want to make them for the people that want your records.
That may become the Rolling Stones faster than the Rolling Stones became the Rolling Stones.
Yeah. So we'll touch on this again because I think it's very important. But and then I wanted to get into Spotify. I wanted to get into a lot of Zynga. Like Gaga is all over Zynga now, and but we'll save that for a future because I really want to get to your questions. I'm going to start the questions off
by reminding them that we're going to give away this thing at the end of the show.
I know who won it. I know
we
who won
do
it.
know
You
who
don't.
won. We do know who won. So stay tuned for our giveaway. It's a cool thing.
I wish I'd written it down. I trusted my memory, and once again it failed me. Someone asked me, what have I taken away and learned from all these shows? And so I asked Will to make me a list of the shows, and I wanted to be fair to everyone on the show because I've learned a little something from every one. So I'm gonna go over this. It's only going to take 10 seconds, so don't anybody panic. But on the first show, we had Ariel Showbass talking about how he made the Nicki Minaj album, and I was impressed at how he used the McDSP plugins and got so much color and emotion out of those plugins. But also, too, it made me jealous because Ariel got to record, track, engineer, mix.
That was the cool part about it.
And so he had a lot of control. Sometimes her control ain't a good thing, but in Ariel's case, he used it to his advantage. And then my good dear buddy, Jean-Marie Horvath. By the way, I spoke with Jean-Marie, and we're going to have a special Into the Lair with Jean-Marie really, really soon, explaining some things to you about the way he works in Logic. But I'm still shocked what John Marie can get out of a pair of R-tones. Then, of course, I'm going to say this about everyone, their passion. These people, John Marie is so passionate. Then my dear fishing buddy, if you're on the chat room now, Dylan and I are talking back and forth about the big barracuda bite that's going out in Santa Monica Bay. Dylan Dresdo. Dylan, we were talking about our model, you know, about Dylan is the perfect person for the future because Dylan is his own man. Dylan, I've seen Dylan turn down major projects to do an indie because his heart was there and he felt something passionate about that. Dylan does Dylan. He doesn't do Dylan Part B or Dylan trying to be like me or anybody else. Dylan is his own person. I love the uniqueness of what he does, but just the sound of his records, I can see his personality. Dylan mixes like he dresses, which I think is I think that's a compliment. I don't think that's an insult. He's just a great guy. And then Tony Maserati, just the intensity and the belief in music that he gets to come through his mixes and his approach to getting that and
another snappy
consistently,
dresser.
yeah, consistently. Well, actually, Dylan won't admit it, but when we were working a long time ago on some early Destiny's Child stuff, Tony was coming up to the studio with a tie. Every night we'd have cigars and scotch. That's when Dylan started wearing the tie. He won't admit that, but I know that's true. And then Manny American, my good friend, the thing I took away from Manny is Manny's another one of those guys that's so unique. I mean, he just brings a freshness and like all of these engineers that we're talking to, they've got a vision. They've got a vision for their sound. Now they won't tell me that my sound sucks and their sound is great. They respect other people's sounds, but they know exactly the sound they want, and none better than Manny. Manny knows exactly what he tries to get out of a record, and we all can get the same things out of those records, but different ways, and I love the way Manny does it. But the main thing I took away from Manny, because I've known Manny for 20 years, is when he said, remember Herb, he said, I start with the highest energy part of the track and then work backwards. I started doing that, and it really works.
That's Keisha. Keisha did a lot of that. You pick your favorite part and then just build off of that.
Yeah.
It's really good. Like the vocals and everything.
I agree. And then my dear friend Jason Joshua, I said on that show that I learned so much from Jason as my assistant, and it was great to see him organize his thoughts in such a way and present them to you. But Jason is probably as passionate as anybody I've ever met about sound, and Jason's a very emotional person. He sometimes he fools people because he's ex-football player and a badass extraordinaire, but Jason knows how to get you to respond to music, and I particularly like the way he talked about the low end on the mixes and how he worked with 808s and stuff. And then our dear friend Maureen Droney, I was impressed with the passion with which she's taken that organization and tried to do some really good things with that organization.
She's the best.
A lot of good people in there.
Really
Can't even read this here. Oh yeah, the show we had with the assistants with Drew and Chris.
Classic.
And
Classic.
Jesus. I hope you understood how hard these guys work. I mean, you have no idea. Just look at Drew. You can tell the man ain't slept in 3 days.
A little beat up.
I know he hadn't slept because I didn't either. And then Emmanuel, Drew and I were talking before the show, and I was impressed that E-Man, he's an artist, he's a singer, he's a great musician, and that mentality he brings into the productions that he does, and he used. I was surprised that he used a lot of soft synths and stuff like that, but not surprised that they sound so great, because that like Bruce Woodine said in his show, if you want to get good references, go to live shows. Now Bruce wasn't saying listen to the sound of a guitar at a live show and mimic that. I'm speaking for Bruce, so Bruce, if I'm wrong, tell me. But what I took away from Bruce is Bruce was saying, go to live shows and understand the emotion, and then when you get back in the cold, dark studio bring that emotion out of the speakers, so your live references aren't necessarily for sound, but for the emotion. Like you know, our first musical experiences were probably concerts that we remember. It was for me, and then of course Dan and Dave Huff. I was shocked at the understated simplicity with which Dan described what he does. I mean,
it's kind of refreshing when, like, I mean, because everybody can act like they know everything about engineering, but it's refreshing when you get somebody that is successful and just uses the equipment as a tool, not as a show-off, look what I can do, and explain. It's just like, I use the blue thing. It's like, you're right, that's how it's supposed to be used. It's just a tool.
But man, those guys, you got to listen to Giant. That was their band in the 90s, incredible musicianship. And then our buddy Ed Cherney and Rose, Ed, when Ed first said, you've got to get the business right, I was like, well, I'm a hippie, we don't care about business. And then when he expounded on that, I understood what he meant. That's a great show. And then no one has more passion here again than Ed Cherney. I mean, when he goes to make a record, he's trying to change the world. He ain't playing around. He makes great records. And then our favorite Prop 215 guy, Mike Dean. You guys were a little hard on Mike, but Mike can take it. He's a big boy. But I was really impressed with the simplicity with which Mike worked. Now, simplicity in terms of selection of equipment, not in terms of, Mike is very deep. He's like Ariel. Mike records the records, writes the records, produces the records, engineers the records, mixes the records, and masters all those records.
And plays live.
And plays live. He's
Right.
the MD for the band. I just talked to Mike yesterday. He's in Morocco having a wonderful time. But I keep wanting some of these guys to give me the magic formula, like, well, I use this exotic piece of gear and then I can run out and buy that piece of gear. But no, I mean, Mike uses the stuff that we all have. He just makes it sound a hell of a lot better than us because he's not worshiping the tools. He's using those tools to construct, you know, I mean, Kanye's records are beyond question. They're really good records. And then we learned a lot about poultry from Bruce Swedeen. Bruce was, that was just one of the highlights of my career so far, talking with him. Talk about passion. The man grabs his laptop and goes walking around showing us his piano miking technique. I mean, he's as passionate. That was just so refreshing. And then I learned about the Bloomline pair. I learned so much from Bruce. And then Phil Tan. What I took away from Phil was a humility and a humbleness that I could stand to learn a little more of. But also, too, Phil articulated the concept of really paying attention to what you're given. And sometimes, if we were barbers, sometimes people just want a little trim off the back, cut the sideburns a little bit. They don't want a whole new hairdo. And Phil made me realize that sometimes I have to check and see what people want. Sometimes in the past I go a little crazy and just do too much. And Phil, like Ariel and Mike Dean, he gets so much out of the same gear we all have. It just kind of pisses me off sometimes because his records sound so good. And then Joe Barresi, there again, I know quite a bit about music. I know music theory. I've got a really good, solid foundation in music. And somehow I tend to not have a great respect for people like that. I've always liked the music made by people that know a lot less, because sometimes when you know too much, it restricts you. Yeah. Joe is one of the geniuses in music, and he uses that knowledge probably better than anyone. His records, some of the Queens of the Stone Age records, the Melvins, some of those records, if I could mix like that, I'd quit tomorrow. I mean, those mixes are spectacular. And then, round of applause, Michael Brower.
Hey, classic.
I thought Michael had a 6-foot goat in his room. It turned out to be a little 4-inch toy goat. But that little goat symbolizes Michael Brower, G-O-A-T, greatest of all time. That little goat to me showed his passion, his his sense of humor. And when I listen to Michael's work, I feel his personality. And Michael, when he started showing us all his pulling out those drawers with all the delays and stuff, oh man, that was God, it's just so heartwarming to see that he still has that passion. But Michael is all about the music. He has all that equipment, and yet he makes some of the most passionate, like his John Mayer work is incredible. I mean, everything Michael does has that personality, the serious side, the humorous side, the emotional side, the intellectual side. And then up to today's show, the Herb Trowick Show.
No, it's not. It's the Q&A with D Pensado and
Dave's Magic Preamp.
absolutely DMP. Giving it away shortly. Stay tuned. Let's get in the corner office and get some questions answered. Jimmy, you want to fire away?
Yeah, what I told people today was hit me with philosophical questions, stuff that, you know, because we always talk about vocal chains and everything like that. Here it is. First one, how do you know you're done? How do you know you're done with mixing?
Well, the way you know you're done is there's about 10 people outside with messengers saying, we got to get this crap to mastering now. If we don't make it to mastering now, you won't make the record.
Right.
I don't think we're ever done. I think we just run out of time.
What about like up-and-comers that don't have like a deadline per se, you know?
Well, you need deadlines. Deadlines. I read a quote by what's the guy that does Saturday Night Live? Michaels.
Lorne Michaels.
Lorne Michaels said, I don't try. He said, I can't make the best show I can. I make the best show I can by 11:30 Saturday night. And sometimes that's the hardest thing for me. All my assistants will tell you. I'll find ways to get an extra hour, extra 30 minutes. But sometimes we're the only ones that hears that. So I'd say I can't answer that question.
No, I think you did. I really think you did.
I'm the worst. I'm the worst.
Well, I mean, like you need a deadline.
You've seen me do it. I got hits on the radio, and I'll still go back in the studio and redo the mix again, just because for me, I'm the only one that hears it because I hear it on the radio, and it drives me nuts. It's something I think I can do better.
Here's another good one. What are some ways to keep your endurance up in the studio?
You know what? That's really good. The opposite of what you think. No caffeine, no fat, no fried stuff. Drink a lot of water. And this is worth listening to. Pay attention to this. When you were a kid and your dad woke you up at 6 and at 3 in the morning and said, "Son, we're going fishing. Son, we're going to the fair." You wake up and you feel great all day. But your dad comes in and wakes you up and says, "Son, we're going to go get that root canal now and hang out with that aunt you don't like," and you're just dragging all day. So a lot of it has to do with mental expectations too. If you're excited about staying up, like Drew and I just recently stayed up all night, a couple of nights in a row on a Keisha Cole mix, and we just had fun. I mean, we were giddy like little kids. It was just so much fun.
Except that third day.
The third day was a little tough. But I would say lots of water, lots of fluids, no caffeine. Caffeine makes you do this. You just get on this roller coaster ride you can't get off of. And fat, and no fat, no fries, and mental attitude.
All right. Do you like having the artist in the studio when you mix?
That's kind of the point, isn't it? I mean, I don't mean to be a smartass. I'm just genetically disposed to be one. But yes, I do. I can take more risks when I've got the producer and the artist there. Otherwise, I have to be a little more conservative. But if I can do something crazy and look over at them and say, "You like this?" and get an instant feedback, then I can make better records.
Yeah, because most of the time, I mean, it seems like the common thread is that people don't like the artist in the
Well, try to
room.
give somebody a haircut when they don't show up.
Yeah. Well put. Well put. Okay. How do you keep inspired working with material that doesn't initially excite you? From Dark Pine Studio.
Well, that's where I'm blessed with a good ego. What happens with all of us is that once we start, even if we don't like everything about it, we tend to like what we've done, and as what we've done increases, you like it more and more. Well, isn't that an odd thing, you know? I can find things. My mom said one time, if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all, and so she introduced me to this pretty heavyweight girl, and I said, well, she doesn't sweat much for a fat girl. So I said something nice. Sometimes you just got to find the part of the mix where they don't sweat much.
All right, sorry.
Am I going to get sued for that, Herb?
Lawyers are on my BlackBerry right now.
Oh my gosh. Why do I do this to myself?
All right, here's one from Pay-Per-View Studios.
Pay-Per-View Studios.
Question for Herb. How much money does a point translate to a point translate on a typical major label record?
That's one of the problems with points, is that there's such a wide swath. It depends on your deal, depends on your royalty rate, depends on what the records are being sold for.
Good question, Dylan.
It really is a good question, and I've worked with artists who have sold platinum records and not received royalties because of the amount of money that was spent in getting them to platinum. So it's this sort of, it's not a typical range. It just doesn't exact out into something where you can go, it means X.
Can you do a little research and bring that information to us in a week or two? Because there's difference, like there's producer points, there's artist points, and there's different types of points. It's not a simple answer.
Well, there's the point itself may be a specific, but the definition of that, of how that point's applied, will change its monetary value back to you. That's the.
What I'd like to know is Dylan's question, but then like if you have half the writing or all the writing on a record that sells 1 million copies, what is your publishing on that? There's mechanicals, there's performance. We should break that down for people maybe in a couple of weeks.
Things. I mean, performance stuff comes from performance societies. Certain things come from sales. Yeah, and that has a lot to do with where it's performed. If it's performed in the yoga class in the gym and ASCAP has given them a license, then depending on that relationship, which is ASCAP is controlled by the writers, that money comes back to you differently because in a collective pool than what happens when it sells. And so that kind of arcane stuff, which is not really arcane, it's the way the business is, has been part of the resistance to, that part of that is changing because of the change that's going on in the business.
Also, too, the reason you can't put an exact number on some of this stuff is because our business was started by a few unsavory characters who found it was to their advantage to keep people in the dark about all of this.
It used to be that way. That's changed by and large. It's very hard to stay in the dark now with lawyers and other kinds of things. It's just that people have bought into a system that when it changed, and the labels are trying to reflexively change and come up with things like 360 deals and so on and so forth. But again, it's the definition. A point on a single is different than a point on an album. A point on something else is different than, so there's different specificity. No, it's fine.
Okay, great.
We got like an add-on to that from Will, producer. Follow up to Dylan's question: how effective are publishing companies in paying out royalties in the internet age?
Is that for me?
Yeah.
That's another interesting question. The traditional publishing companies oftentimes acted like kind of a box, and they just got requests in, and they would answer that request, and they would pay for this catalog, and it would just sit there. And while their maintenance and administration and so on and so forth was not bad, there are other newer publishing company iterations that exist now, like Primary Wave and other kinds of things, and they're trying to take a much more aggressive marketing approach in non-traditional ways. And I'll give you an example, because we have my other job, we have a deal with this company called Primary Wave, and I'm not touting them over others. I'm just saying there's new ways to approach it. I think they signed Steven Tyler, and one of the deals they did was with the Massachusetts Lottery for some of their music. And Steven Tyler and the band got a small percentage of the lottery income for lottery tickets. That's a non-traditional approach and a new way. So because the business has changed, it used to be you just tried to get things covered in movies and films and commercials and records and all that kind of stuff. And quite frankly, that's a tougher thing for publishing companies now. It's harder to get songs covered. It's harder because everything's become so niche and kind of cliquish and in-house.
So niche again.
Niche. Yeah, it's like negotiation.
I don't know. I got to go with him. He's the intellect here.
So they're trying to handle the internet age, and in trying to your point, Will, because it's new, and because the modeling in terms of the economics are not the same. These companies are trying to figure out how do they still resource reaching into the space, but not necessarily knowing what the return is coming back on. Last piece, one of the things that we have found, because the company I work with has a pretty established, amazing catalog over 40 years, is Earth, Wind, and Fire catalog, and one of my partners is the founder of the group. And interestingly enough, when we talk to publishing companies, now companies don't want to pay for the original music. They would rather go hire somebody to make a version of the song, not have to pay record companies for the master use. They'll work out a publishing deal, and if the publishing deal is too expensive or whatever, they'll go find something else. So no longer is this notion of having to get that original song the driving force for commercials and so on and so forth, because they think they're overvalued. What switched is they now believe, no, you don't have the audience, artist. I have the audience. My product goes to millions and millions and millions of people, and you're lucky if you go to 1 million people.
Wow.
So when my Coca-Cola goes out, I'm going to 20 or 30 million people. You're lucky if you're double platinum. Why am I overpaying you? Let's figure out how we've changed this relationship. So that's an example of where this
Holy cow.
is flattening. And you can't blame them. It's a hard argument to argue with.
All right, let's delve away from the industry business questions. We'll get back to philosophy. And Dave, question from Soundright Pro. How do you not doubt yourself while mixing? What makes the tool you choose? Don't laugh yet, hold on.
You should answer that. Oh man, all my guys will tell you I doubt myself every second of the day. The reason my assistants and I become so close is because I doubt myself. I'm doubting myself at this moment. I think my Depends are working, but I'm just not sure.
Everybody's laughing out there.
To be serious with you, I think I still get nervous before every mix. I still approach a mix in sheer panic and terror if I'm going to be able to do it. It's a lot of pressure, man, having somebody's livelihood, their career, the future of their children, everything depending on what you do. I take that responsibility serious, and then at some point you just have to trust your instincts, and when you hit play and you like it, you're done and you're done. But I second guess, and all those little cliches, trust your first instincts and all that. I got a tattoo of that right here somewhere. I'd never look at it though. It's tough, man. I'm telling you, it's tough, and everyone's different. I know some guys. There's a mixer named Alan Meyerson who does a lot of movies, and I've seen Alan EQ a track, set the fader, and never touch it again. It's done. I mean, he knows exactly what he wants. I think we're all different, and for me, I like dynamic, changing mixes every. Alan is a little more direct. I hope I'm being. We'll have Alan on the show and ask him, because he's one of the people that I admired and still do. When I first started, he was like someone I copied a lot.
If I could just add to that, doubting yourself. If you're not failing, you're not trying. So you have doubts are just doubts. It's just you got to get past that, because the only person that's going to do it for you is you. So if I could.
Yeah, it's not like being at the free throw line with no time left and you're down by one. That's doubting yourself. There is a little different. Doubting yourself in the creative process is a little different.
Yeah. Okay.
Good point, though, Drew.
Yeah. Let's get a question for Herb. Will the Weirdo question: do they believe the 360 deals are good or bad for the industry?
Who is they?
You.
Oh, do we believe? Question. Or
no,
it says, do they believe?
Right.
Well, I guess, yeah. You guys.
The truth of 360 deals is that they are sort of universally reviled, but specifically when you're in the midst of one, it's really you and your representatives negotiating with the company how much you will give them of stuff. So you may say, yes, you can participate in my merchandising, but we're only going to give you half of the revenue off of one shirt. We're only going to give you, so you have some control about what you specify. The industry position is that we promote all this stuff, we make it possible for you to have all these kinds of things, we're losing revenue, should we take the position to participate in that or not? Most people disagree. I personally don't think that they have saved the business. So as a model, forget about my personal and emotional stuff. From an analytical standpoint, I don't know. It obviously hasn't turned around the revenue side. It hasn't changed it. Seems to have pissed a lot of people off. But in reality, most companies have, but these are parent companies that make these decisions because there are a lot of financial people. They have a hard and fast rule that they won't sign things that aren't a 360 deal because of the money that they lose. So I personally think that they're not that effective, and in some cases they create really bad tensions between you and a label. If you can avoid it, try to. If you can't avoid it, then you negotiate the stuff down to something that you can live with. And I've seen a lot of times where the artist is giving very little back to the record company in return for them not only giving them more money, but also having to be involved in building that brand out for them. So you can actually, you can institute some controls in 360s.
Good to know, good to know. Back to you, Dave. Can Dave elaborate on his version of the rule of thirds? Now that we've had time to look up.
I thought the question was, can Dave elaborate on being a virgin?
Like, no.
Hey, I'm Espanol. We know we don't got no virgin. I sound Italian when I'm Spanish.
I didn't know what language it was because you're usually a little bit
Okay,
ebonical.
so far we've got the weight challenge people suing me. We've got several ethnic groups. Johnny Cochran's
Females.
gee whiz.
Great
It's the internet. What was the question?
Can you elaborate on the rule of thirds?
Yeah, I knew what the question was. I just needed some time.
Gotcha.
You know what? That's a pretty complex thing. That's going to take. Can you remind me? We have to do a show on that because it's much broader than that. Basically, the concept. Is the application of use of your senses in one area and applying those senses to another area and understanding how your sense of hearing is related to your sense of sight. And so
The paintings and stuff like that.
yeah,
You tell me.
so it's not just the rule of thirds. That's just a small part of it because your sense of taste is very similar to your sense of hearing. Like the spices in different foods can be analogous to certain things in the other world. So this isn't a quick question. I'm not blowing you off, but I've been working on that. I've been trying to prepare some graphics and things to be able to squeeze it into a couple of 30-minute shows, but I've done 2-hour lectures on that, and I've got 2 different people that have done master's thesis papers based on some of my work. So it's pretty complex, but it's a great question. Thank you for asking it.
Cool. We got homework to do?
It's coming up. I mean, the cool part is that we're getting close to announcing our giveaway of that beautiful Michael Lohman BAE DMP 1073. It's kind of exciting. We used a very cool company.
By the way, this was used by me in Estero. This thing is incredible.
And I remember Estero, I actually talked to her, and she was just so pleased. And she's a real purist. You know,
Oh, no. Estero's
she
a real
knows
deal.
her stuff. This is no joke.
Yeah. I was talking to Estero last night. I think she's a perfect artist for the future, don't you?
Yeah,
she's
kinda.
got that integrity.
The
She's
talent.
And she's
So
intelligent.
talented, yeah.
She's really bright about it.
yeah, and she's so gifted.
So the cool part is our giveaway is coming up, and you know what? We used a really cool company to manage the process so that we can make sure it was a random draw. It's called promojam.com, promojam.com. Sorry, and they use Twitter. You can see their website up on the screen now. They use 3 platforms: Twitter, Facebook, and MySpace, to make sure we got all the requests in, and they actually randomly pick this winner, whose name is right here on this little slip of paper we have right here. So we'll be telling you about that in a minute. A couple more. Let's ask another question or two, and then we'll do the giveaway.
Okay, sure. Somebody asked, Tito Beats. He's curious.
Tito, I see his name all the time.
Yeah, he's curious on how you set a vibe in the studio.
We should answer that.
Well, I'll tell you this: flatulence is not involved. Usually. Oh my God!
No promises.
Flatulence.
Yeah, you're on fire today.
Is there a group? Is there a flatulence group?
There is.
Anti-flatulence group that I'm worrying
They're
about now?
calling right now.
You know what? I think that's an incredibly good question and very complex because it points to the fact that you understand the importance of vibe in the room. we have fun at my sessions, and I think that we're making records to try and entertain people, and if we can't entertain ourselves in the process, you're not going to make some. I just don't like the records that come out of one guy alone in a cave. That's a harsh statement. Of course I do, but we have fun. I mean, I tease my assistants; they tease me. We play tricks on them. They'll, you know, I like lava lamps. I'm not quite sure why. I think Dave Wrights just got me started on lava lamps, but I love lava lamps and
What about like creating, like getting the artist, like a fresh new artist, never talked to you before?
Oh, Drew's seen me do this. If it's a young artist, I sit down and I tell them, look, I might have all this success, but I work for you. You're my boss. If you're 14 years old, I work for you. Be comfortable. Treat me like the bitch that I am. Just tell me what you want. I'm here to get what you want. I'm capable of doing anything in the studio, but sometimes I don't know exactly what to do. And I try to lay a foundation where people fully understand that my job is twofold: to give them what they want and to not let them make mistakes. There's times when I have to pull rank and say, look, this isn't going to work on radio. This isn't going to work on iTunes. But most of the time it's like, well, if that's your idea, let me figure out how to make it great. And more often than not, the ideas just kind of escalate. I was doing a song a long time ago. I wish I could think of a more recent example, but I had a suggestion, and my suggestion was really bad, but when the person sang the suggestion back, it sounded really good the way he sang it, and it ended up being a big hit record. By the way, we got to make a note to find out what song Dave Huff put that 808 on in the country world.
I don't. No, he didn't say.
I don't think he said yet.
He didn't say, no.
I think he's holding out on us.
All right, so we got the end-all, be-all to the questions. Miami or Chicago?
I'm from Miami, but my heart's with Chicago. I don't know why.
We got a woohoo out there.
That was Mo. I got to tell you, LeBron arguably has won me over in terms of his skills and abilities. I used to question, but I would be happy if either team won. I would have been happier if the Lakers won. But Herb and I are basketball aficionados. Well, Herb's just a downright fanatic. Herb defines the word fan. He wears the same underwear. If it was lucky for one game. That's a little too much info, isn't it?
Yeah, I was trying to figure out purple and gold drawers, just not.
But Herb and I, we like the basketball players as much as we like teams. So I'm more pull for individuals as opposed to teams a lot of times. But Chicago's got a wonderful story. It's easy to obviously the Heat are the front runners. It's easy to kind of sometimes not like the front runners. And like the underdogs. I went to college in the ACC, so obviously I was a big Michael Jordan fan, and then when Michael was at the Bulls, I was a big Bulls fan because of Michael and my ACC background. And then when Phil came to the Lakers, remember I didn't like the Lakers, but when Phil came to the Lakers, I started liking the Lakers, and I left Miami by the time the team got down there, so I don't really feel that much for them. But I guess if I had to pick, I like the story of the Bulls. I like the way they play. They play like a team. They do a lot of things right. The Heat are incredibly impressive. There's nothing like watching those guys like LeBron and Dwayne on a fast break. Gee whiz, it's a piece of art.
You said the Bulls?
I like the Bulls, but it's not because I dislike Miami for the reasons that a lot of people a lot of people get sort of hyped up on the way LeBron did the decision and the way they put together an incredible team. Pat Riley still and always will be a Laker, so I applauded the way he runs the organization. Mickey Aronson's a great owner. I just think that Tom Thibodeau, with the defensive sort of mindset he brings to the game, is good for the NBA overall. Chicago had the best record for a reason. They're aggressive for a reason. Derrick Rose is MVP for a reason. And a bunch of young guys have got to take on some guys in Miami who have been, Dwayne Wade has won before, LeBron has not, but they've got more experience. So it's interesting, while they're the front runner, Chicago, in terms of season, they kind of have to knock off the giant, and it just makes for kind of
Did this turn into ESPN something?
A little bit. We can go there, too. So let's do a giveaway.
Giveaway time.
Mike
Drum roll.
Pre, here we go, drum roll. So, the winner is, do you want to announce it?
Yes, I do.
There you go. So
Drew Adams.
Yay! Thank you. Thank you.
Brian, B-R-Y-A-N. Boyhan, B-O-Y.
Brian Boyhan, let's give him a hand. All right, Brian, you won.
Let me reiterate, this was done via computer, no human hands. I'm serious, 100% serious.
Promojam.com.
We
is the one who
demanded to have utmost integrity in this because you guys wouldn't trust me if I ever did anything less. So this was done, we paid a company to do this for us. They did it. It was selected by computer. And Brian, if you're out there, let us know how we get this to you, my friend.
Maybe, yeah, we'll make sure we'll get it to you, and maybe what we can do at some point in time is maybe Skype Brian into the future thing. And
He's not even in here.
And we'll tell him thank you. He can tell us thank you. Thank you to BAE. We've got more stuff coming.
I'll tell you what, Mark is making the best.
Great stuff.
Great stuff. I mean, this isn't used. This thing's just incredible.
So congratulations again to Brian Boyhan. Thanks, guys, for tuning in. Make sure, again, you reach out to us. Those comments back and forth really help. We'll throw up that page of information that we have to make sure that you reach us. Make sure you write it down. Our Twitter handle, which is up right now, our YouTube page, our Facebook page. Of course, I'm coming back to you.
Okay.
So let's make sure we do the homework again. Congratulations to Brian. Michael Brower and what he's going to do with the stuff in France. This is great. We got some great guests coming up for you. Stay tuned. Tell your friends. Thank you for your support. And back to you, my man.
Okay, guys, I'm going to leave you with a couple of thoughts. Like I wasn't philosophical enough. But, you know, we've got all this bandwidth out there. Some of it's been eaten up on things that we've covered in the past. Let's use a little bit of bandwidth to try and help each other out. Let's use a little bit of that bandwidth to share with each other things that we've heard that really that really got us excited, songs that we like. I'm not talking about the crap you just did last night in your basement. I'm talking about some new stuff that you heard that you're not involved with. You know, share some of that stuff with us. Let us know what you're listening to. And the things that Herb has said, think about some of that stuff. I mean, I got a feeling the guy that's going to change our music industry is listening to the show now, and I want you to be that guy. So think about this stuff. Get those questions and cards and letters in for Herb. I talk to him every day about this stuff, and whatever little success I've had as a function of a lot of those conversations.
And both ways. It works both ways. So you can hit the Pensado'SPlace Facebook page. You can hit me. You can hit whatever the case may be. But again, we want to be a community that's helpful. And again, they're all opinions. Research it. There may be some countervailing opinions, but you guys make the show. And
I'll tell you what, guys. Going over this list of the guests, I want to thank each and every one of you for giving me the opportunity to hang out with my friends. The 18 or 19 people on this list.
More to come.
Yeah. The show. Hopefully, your comments keep saying we get better and better and better all the time. We're trying to get better all the time, but we really enjoy hanging out with you. We really enjoy you allowing us to hang out with our friends and make flatulence jokes. And shout out to the staff out there. They've been doing a great job. Am I leaving anything out, Herbert?
No, just weird that you would tie our staff out there into flatulence, but that's another story. Let's get out of here. It's been a good hour.
Thanks,
Thanks, guys.
Adios, amigos.
See you.